G'day, Fred. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate.
That's
We're
good.
we're going to put this little video together to show people what we've been up to. Most of us have already been or watched videos on us developing a Donkian trader, which EAs have been published, but now we've created a system here where people can create their own and have the chance to do some of the work in the background to convince themselves what's going on. So in order to do this, we've created 3 EAs, and you can see them on screen there. Rich wants to move his mouse around. We've got an optimizer, we've got a trader, and we've got an iterator. There's 3 different files. They're all named Don for Donkian, and we want to show you how these work. So step 1 is to run the optimizer, and it's called optimizer for a reason because it runs on the strategy tester in the optimizer format. So Rich is just going to load that up, and then if you have a look at the expert properties for that optimizer, we're starting with $100,000 in our account. We've unticked the generic algorithm box, and then we have a series of inputs. Now these inputs you would have seen before. There's the Donkian period. We've added something new. We've got an ATR period in here because we've found that different ATR settings do deliver different results. So you've now got the opportunity of setting the ATR through a range as well. Stop loss settings as per usual, a trailing stop, and a break-even multiplier. They're all multiples of the ATR, and so the ATR period comes into play across the board. So once those optimization settings have been ticked, you can see Rich has got in there a range for the Donkian, for example, from 50 through to 600 in steps of 50. So that means we're going to run through quite a number of different versions of this with different Donkian lookbacks. ATR period similarly, and you can work your way through the rest. We've got quite a range. So there's quite a number of iterations, and we'll find out how many as soon as we get started. So having set that up as the optimization run, we can then hit the start button, and away we go. Now while you're looking at that, you can see it's starting to run through. If we go back to the settings for a minute, Rich, here you can see there's 51,840 different combinations that we're going to run through, and you can see them ticking over. We've done 4 so far, and if you look on the right hand side there, it says it's going to take 66 hours to perform this test. Now obviously
Just be aware, I'm on a very slow PC here, so my other PC's got a lot more grunt, so it tends to run this process in about 5 hours.
So that gives you an idea of the extent of testing we're doing here. But what's happening is we're trying each of these different combinations out to try and pick the best one as we move forward. So if you look at the folder structure, what's happening in the background is that in the tester folder, in the file section, we've got a number of files being created. And you can see as we move along, they're being updated. So the equity files up to 142 kilobytes, etc., and it's just ticking over. Now what we might do is just pause here for a second while Rich pulls out one that we prepared earlier, just to give you an idea of what this will look like. So Rich has just uploaded some files that we've run through previously that took about 5 hours to produce, and here you can see the equity file is quite large, 853 megabytes. And we have a number of other files in there. So the first thing we might do is just double click on the performance file, Rich. You'll see when the spreadsheet opens up, you'll see the number of runs we've done. So if you look at this file, you can see if you scroll down, there's many thousands of iterations. Just about 41,000 iterations. So if we go back to the top, you can see the headings. And you'll see across the top there, towards the right-hand side in column U, for example, we've got the Donkian period, the ATR period, stop-loss multipliers, those parameter settings that we played with, and this is where they're all captured. So we've got now effectively quite a number of runs that have gone through the iteration process. So what happens now is we'll close that file again, and we'll grab those 3 files from the tester section, and we're going to copy them across to the MC4 live environment, if you like, because we're going to run these next to EA in that other series. So once we just push that across, under the file section. Okay, so those files are now sitting in the MQL folder as opposed to the tester folder. And this allows us to run the next step in a live form. So what we need to do now is to open the chart. Right, Rich needs to open a Euro chart. But doesn't matter what the time frame is. Okay, now close down the strategy tester because we don't need that any longer. And at this point, what we do is we grab the iterator. Now the iterator does a number of things. There's not many options in here, so basically it's what it comes as it is. So if you open the inputs tab, you've got in here a couple of options. Because we've got 41,000 possible strategies, we're trying to limit ourselves to a number. So 500 is the max. We're recommending 500, but you could go down to 150, 200, whatever you like. But 500 is
and you can also go the other way as well if you wanted to, couldn't you, Fred? Up to 1,000, 2,000, whatever you like.
Well, you could, but right now the EA is limited to 500. So if we want to go higher, we have to change a few things, but that's where we've got it set at the moment. But what this also does is it gives you an opportunity to set a couple of parameters. So when we talk iterations on the next line down, we're saying how many times are we going to cycle through to try and find the best MAR. We'll talk about that in a moment. Looking at the next one down, we've got a minimum and a maximum random. And what we're saying here is that we want, at the end of this process, we want a number of strategies into our portfolio. And what we've got set here is that we want a minimum of 1 strategy and a maximum of 10 strategies to form our portfolio. And we're going to let the EA work out the best combination. And what we're looking for is the best MAR. So the first thing that happens is when this starts to run is we take in all the information that we've currently prepared in our optimizer, and it will sort through and find the 500 most profitable runs through that whole series. We're just typing in 100,000 as the starting balance. And once we've got that 500 in there, we then start to iterate between those 500 to come up with the best combination. So we just click the go button. There's some information on screen there which shows you what's going on. And it's now looking, and you can see here we've got up to 20, I can't read that number, 34 strategies, 42 strategies.
I'll try and blow it up, Fred. I'll just see if I can blow up the screen. No, I can't.
No, you can't change it. But what you'll see is in the top left-hand corner there, if you look close enough, you can see the numbers are moving around. And what's happening there is it's looking through all the strategies in our system, and it's pulling them all into the database. Yeah, that's going to continue for a little while. Okay, so you can see we've jumped back in again. We've got 460 odd EAs working through now. When it gets to 499, it'll flip over and start to do the iteration process. So right now it's just taking all that data in, ready to do its calculations. Stand by. Okay, so there it's started. What it's looking for here, you can see that it's found 3 strategies when combined together gives us a MAR reading of, now we've jumped to 5. And as it's moving along, it's looking for more and more improvements in the MAR calculation. And after 10 million or so, you'll get probably the best optimum you can get within the time frame you've got. We have run some of these tests over 100 million, and there is an improvement, but it's so slight, it's not probably worth considering. So what we'll do, we'll just watch this for a little bit longer, but it's probably going to get a bit boring. And
Fred, you just want to explain the last found and the steps?
Yeah, last found, that's the last iteration. The last time I found the best MAR was at 47,000. We're now at 230 odd thousand and counting, but it hasn't found anything better. So it's still stuck on that particular setting. It's done that 13 times. So 13 times now it's stepped up and created a better MAR. And if you leave this running for long enough, unless you're really lucky and you pick a really good set of Mars in the early stages, this will just continue going and going and going. So we'll watch this for a little while and then we'll pause it and we'll come back with the results. Okay, so we've actually stopped this EA because it does take quite a few hours, but the end result is that we've stepped through and there's a series of files created back in the file structure. So we're back in that same file structure we looked at before, and we look at the Don subdirectory, and here you'll see a few more files have been created. And the one I'm probably most interested at the moment is the snapshot, which is a photo or a window of the final result. So if we open that up, and you can zoom in on that, Rich, see here that it's done 29 steps, and the last step was 650 million. 600 million? That's a big number.
That's
65 million. And so what we've found is this combination of strategies gives us the best MAR that we could get out of that series. And looking down at the results there, we've got quite a diversity of Donchian periods from 200 through to 100 all the way up to 400. The ATR period has changed. Again, there's quite a range. Stop loss multipliers pretty much set around 2 or 3, which is nice. Trailing stop, you might expect them to go a bit longer at times, but again, we're looking for the best MAR, so that's the best combination we came up with. So having created that series, what happens now, if we close that file, there's another file in there called strategies. If you open that up, it's effectively a spreadsheet of the same values, but it's that file that then becomes input into the actual trader. So here you can see all those figures again, replicated. And what we can do there is we can then copy those files back into the strategy tester.
Sorry, Fred, I'll just go back.
And now we open up the strategy tester. And now we run the trader. At this time we'll run the trader in visual mode just so we can see what's happening. Turn the optimizer off, and the expert properties, again, there's nothing to look at there because it's all coming from the file that I've just pointed to you. So if we run that, Rich, slow it down a little bit. You've got it on full speed there, so just click back, and let's let it run.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you.
And while it's difficult to see what's going on, what you can see is a series of trades being taken. And we've just farmed this result, and this is the EA we're getting. What was the date range on this again, Rich?
It was from 2000 through to 2009.
Okay. So we don't need to watch that. You can fast forward that, and we'll see what it looks like at the end. And there we have an equity curve. So I'll let you talk about that, Rich, and you can explain a bit of that.
Okay, Fred. So this entire process we've explained has gone through 3 steps: one of optimization, then to iteration, and then to actually running the trader to make sure that the process is all valid. It then produces an equity curve for the entire portfolio. So if you remember, with the number of strategies that were selected, I think there was, I'll just go to it, there were, in this case, in this example, there were, how many strategies, Fred? I think there were five strategies.
5 or 6, I can't remember.
So there were 5 strategies in this one. Now, this is what the optimization has run, but if you want to, you can also amend these yourselves to create a degree of variation here and run it, and the trader will operate off this file here. So whilst this is the optimization result and the iteration result, the result from the iterator, you can override these values if you wish to, if you want to explore your own variables.
Interesting to play with that, but the fact that it's taken us 8 hours to get there, you probably don't want to change those too.
No. So we have an equity curve over the period. Now, what I want to explain is that this has actually been optimized over this period. Now, we obviously just want to, well, for a start, we're very confident that these things aren't over-optimized. For instance, what we do in our analytics is we look at the map to market relationship between that portfolio. So in this case, we've got Euro USD here. We look at where we get the major lifts in the equity curve and see if it corresponds to price moves. And we're very comfortable with that. We also note that when the equity curve is deteriorating, we note that the price isn't significantly trending, so that's to be expected, but provided it doesn't deteriorate too fast, we're happy with that outcome. We've explained this in all prior podcasts, but we do, at the end of this exercise, validate that everything's working well. Then what we do is we run an out-of-sample test. So in this instance, I'm going to run it back to 1990, or as much data as I have. I'll just put 1986, and I'll run it right up to current day. And this just validates whether or not the strategy has a degree of curve fit nature to it or not. So I'll just quickly run the whole process over that much longer test range, and we'll get a result. So if you can imagine, this is 2002, this is from 2000 through to 2010, 2000 through to 2019 was our test range, but I'm fairly comfortable with the outer sample result here. We still had an increasing equity curve over this period. I'm not concerned about this decline in equity because I can see we have a slight lift up here, but we can understand that decline in equity based on the market conditions that were presented to it, which weren't trending, they were stagnant. And so we did have a deterioration on the equity curve. So I'm very comfortable that this isn't curve fit. This is actually the test range equity curve over the 20-year period. And we're pretty happy with that result. Anything else, Fred, that we should say here?
Well, if you go back to that chart of the map to market,
yep,
you've probably whet people's appetites because the bottom half of that graph is the next EA that we're talking about, which is the breakout trader, which is done in a similar fashion, and it's coming up with quite a nice equity curve also. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yes. That's good. All right, so really that pretty well sums up just a brief overview of the process, but just to explain, so this optimization process, the iteration process, and the trader at the end of this process are effectively 3 steps we take after the design phase of the strategy we wish to evaluate. And this process will be applied to any strategy that we design. So in this case, we're using the Donchian trader that you guys are familiar with. In the next release, we've got a breakout trader, which is based on the Donchian trader, but is a slight variation to that. And then we have other variations as well, using moving averages, which we're close to releasing as well. But the basis is no matter what system we develop, once provided they're very simple systems, we then apply this workflow process to it. So your entire portfolio creation process is automated within the MT4 environment. We don't need to use additional software. It's now all generated from these EAs that we've developed within MT4, which makes it easy for us to use and not having to buy expensive software. We can all do it within the MT4 environment. Fred, anything you'd like to mention on that?
Yeah, well, the beauty of this is that it's totally automated. There's no human intervention other than selecting your parameter sets. And if you've got time, you can make that as fine-tuned as you like, or as rough as you like. And you'll see the results you get out of this. We've tried this every which way, and every time we get a result that's quite acceptable. And so our moving forward is to find other simple strategies, develop more and more output files, if you like, and then we can start combining those into an overall portfolio of different strategies within the one trader. So we're really excited about that process. But in order to get there, we need to do a lot of testing, and I think Rich has already asked for some help there. So hopefully people out there have got some time. It's a pretty simple process. It'll get you involved with the way these EOs are developed, make you a lot more comfortable in terms of creating your own portfolios moving forward.
Yes, we're certainly looking forward to some of our forum members participating in this project. It's only going to benefit you. It'll allow you to get deeper insights into the systems we're trading, and it should be a fun process. So what we've found is that we're obviously limited by our PCs and their processing capacity. I've got a fairly high-end PC which I use for this testing, which does fast track the process, but it does still take considerable PC resources. It might take 6 to 8 hours to generate one market with one strategy like the process we've outlined tonight. So whilst there's no intervention on our part and these PCs just chug away in the background while we do other things, we do need a bit of collaboration here to punch out these strategies. So looking forward to some members getting involved, and just let us know if you're interested. So look, we might wrap it up here now, Fred. So thanks very much, mate, and thank you forum members for listening to this, and I'll be getting out a few more deeper instructional videos on this process, just to run through this process again in a bit more detail. So you'll become more familiar with the process. So stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
Thanks everyone. Cheers, guys. Bye.